what I used to believe about healing was that if I was healed, that means I wouldn't struggle in the ways that I used to struggle. There's so many things that I could use as an example of this, but even just anxiety, like if you, I imagined being healed from anxiety and just being like, oh, that's so great that I'm going to get to a place where I never have to experience anxiety again. And like that actually is not what being healed is. Being healed is you're living your life from such a place of love for yourself that when you experience anxiety, right away, you're aware of what's happening and that you know that that anxiety isn't the ultimate reality. That isn't ultimately what's true, but you have to acknowledge it as something that you really are experiencing. The more you do this, the more anxiety doesn't really have power in your life because, like, it's okay. It's okay to be anxious. Like, this world, it makes sense that a lot of us are anxious. Like, it just makes sense. Another huge thing for anxiety is that, like, to be human is to need other humans and to actually have authentic, honest interactions with other people. And so, if you are experiencing anxiety with people, you can actually just like tell them or like in like, and it's not always appropriate in every single circumstance. I understand that. But especially if you're hanging one on one with someone and you're starting to feel anxious or you notice, um it's okay. Like, it's okay. You don't have to not experience anxiety for you to be healed. And when it comes to exposure therapy, I've found the best tool to practice these things is actually just going into your imagination because your body still your body responds to imagination as if it were real. So if you've never done something before and you're trying to prepare for it, let's use a different example. Attachment theory. You can use imagination to help heal anxious or avoidant attachment or whatever you struggle with in romantic relationships, whatever your mental patterns are that create disorder or stress when in reality there's no need for that disorder or stress. That's only your mental pattern. So, something that I used to experience in romantic, intimate relationships was, or I guess that's not plural, in my one romantic, intimate relationship that I have been in, something that I used to experience was suddenly being overwhelmed with the truth that my partner actually hates me. And it sounds crazy, but for me, for my experience, it was like a real thing that I experienced. And obviously, it was very distressing. And to cope with that, I would pull away and try my hardest to kind of not actually be seen or known because of that fear of like, if this person actually sees me, the real me, he will just totally reject me. Now, I'm not in a relationship right now, but how I'm mentally preparing, in a sense, to lessen this anxiety is that because I've stopped believing these specific things about healing, like, I'm operating from a healed place. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to experience that same thing again in a future relationship. But what I'm doing to help prep my nervous system is I'm vividly imagining being in a similar situation where all of a sudden, like, I'm having a great time with this person, and all of a sudden I feel very anxious, and this shame wound, it's like, hey, the like my body's like, hey, whoa, this actually isn't fun and this person hates you. In that moment, in my imagination, right, I start to feel the stress of it, but I act from a healed place, which is right away, because I love myself so much, I'm just like, whoa, okay, acknowledge it, be like, this is a really awful thing for you to experience. Like, I'm so sorry that you're having to experience this right now. And then communicate, right? Like, tell my partner, I suddenly started to experience this really intense anxiety. And then in my imagination, right, I'm like vividly in this imagination, and I imagine what my partner could say in that moment and how my partner could actually help me regulate. And the whole experience ends up being one that brings us closer together and is fundamentally intimate and vulnerable, which are the building blocks of a healthy relationship. Anyways, it's just been so freeing to remind myself that it's not like I'm never going to experience anxiety. It's not like I'm going to meet this magic person that like poofs it all away. To be human is to need other people, and it's okay. And I'm sort of in this place of like surrendering to that and what it means. But like the imagination piece is something that I feel like no one really talks about, but it is so useful. Like, go into your imagination and think up these scenarios where you act from a healed place. What does it actually feel like, right? Like, the I imagined this scenario yesterday, right, where my this imaginary partner comforts me, and I just felt this immense relief. The truth is that we just don't need to be healed because we already fundamentally are. Like, there's nothing wrong with any of us fundamentally before you see the bulk of your healing take place. For me, at least, in my experience, it has started with just way more grace and love for myself as a human being. It's like it's literally fine. It's really, really fine to struggle with whatever you're struggling with. It's kind of brutal to be a human on this planet. It just is right now for whatever reason, and has been, I think, for maybe forever. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with you, and there never has been. I think that ultimately is what freed me in the biggest sense. Go into your imagination and see what it feels like to struggle with things that you've struggled with in the past, but experiencing them in a new way where they don't actually have power. And there is a real chance that you may never struggle with something after you, like, quote unquote heal it. But I feel like for most of us, I mean, like, life is just a shit show. I don't know. Anyways, bye.